What's up, tubers? T.O. here, Simplistic Fishing, coming back at you tonight to continue our lake breakdowns. And tonight we're actually going to go out, check out a new pond. This one's called Lake Jacksboro. A little bit confusing with Texas Park and Wildlife. I'll explain here in a minute, but lots of good stuff. Let's go check it out. Now this one is an interesting one. When I come out here to the Texas Park and Wildlife page to look up Lake Jacksboro, it actually just shows the lower half of the lake. There's another whole part of the lake that's above it. And I believe that there might even be a different name for it on Texas Park and Wildlife. I can't remember what the name was that I found out there. But anyways, we're gonna roll with this one, but know that this lake, and it's really separated by a road, and you'll see it here on Google Earth, probably has totally different characteristics than the one right above it. And you'll see what I'm talking about when we go over to Google Earth. But let's talk about Lake Jacksboro here. Location is in Jack County, northeast side of Jacksboro off of US 59. Surface area is only 116 acres, so this part is definitely a little bit smaller. Maximum depth is 30 feet. It was impounded in 1951. The water conditions, as fluctuation is very low, and you'll see the top half, it fluctuates a ton, or at least it had a dry spell. But the bottom half, it really didn't fluctuate very much at all. The bottom half definitely a lot more difficult to break down. The top half a lot easier. As far as aquatic vegetation, water willow, pondweed, all that good stuff can be found along the shoreline. You'll see there's a lot of vegetation all along the shoreline on that lower half. Predominant fish species, we've got largemouth bass, white crappie, white bass, and channel catfish. Lake records, always like to look at that. Before we do that, let's go down here to angling opportunities. It says largemouth bass is good, catfish is poor, crappie's fair, white bass is fair. That seems like fish, rocks, and vegetation with crankbaits, Texas rig plastics, and topwater bass for largemouth bass. Seems like this one might be a little bit tougher. Let's look at the lake records. Largemouth bass, 7 pounds, caught in 2002. So you got some work to do if you're going to go out here to this part of the water. But I got to tell you, the other half, the northern half of this, looks a lot better. Let's go take a look at it on Google Earth and you'll see what I'm talking about. So now I've switched over and we're here using Google Earth, and you can tell this is Lake Jacksboro. This is what we saw right on Texas Park and Wildlife. And I zoom in here and it doesn't say anything on Google Earth. And then I go up here to this top lake and I zoom in, see if it'll say it. It should say it right there, Lake Jacksboro. So I'm like all confused on actually what is Lake Jacksboro. Texas Park and Wildlife says it's this. Google Earth says it's this, so I said, you know what? And then I actually messaged one of our subscribers because he was asking about this lake. And I said, I can't figure this out, which one's which. And he said, really, that we just call them both Lake Jacksboro. So that's what I'm going to roll with. We're just going to call them both Lake Jacksboro. 2-for-1 punch right here. Let's go ahead and start down here on the Texas Park and Wildlife part of it. That's what we're going to call it. Southern half of Lake Jacksboro, let's say that. This one's going to be pretty quick and easy. Like I said, fluctuation's only a foot here, so you're not going to see a lot of stuff. And with all the vegetation along the shoreline, you really can't pick up much from a Google Earth standpoint. Doesn't matter what year you're in. Here you can see I'm in 2017. Up here, the water's really low, but down here it's not. All right, anyways, I'm getting too far ahead of myself. Let's jump over here to the left-hand side and look at this really quick and see how we have it broke down. So first off, I've got channels and ditches, if there are any. There's a couple different channels back here that we'll take a look at. We've also got lots of different cover. There's road beds. There's a couple ledges that I saw, Texas ledges, I'm gonna call them that. Some pond dams, some ditches, things like that we'll cover. We've also got offshore stuff. Quite a few offshore spots. I don't think it's gonna bring them all in until I go up to 2024, and then you're gonna see them all together. Some of those offshore spots I picked based on the water being low, and then other offshore spots I picked based on avionics, which we'll switch over and we'll look at that here in a minute. But you can see here quite a few offshore spots. Not as much on the southern end, but quite a few on the northern side. All right, let's go and look at this. We've also got ramps, not too many. There's a couple, there's a ramp here to this side. And then I don't think there was another main one there. There's another main one right here, but that one looks like it's almost like it's dirt. But right here, and even in 2024, these are really exposed too. In fact, the water almost looks down more than it did in the other one. But right here, look at all these chunks, slabs of, I don't know what this stuff, it almost looks like slabs of concrete that were laid down in there. But that could definitely be a good area to look at as well. Let's see, we got rock too. We got lots of rock actually. There's a ton of rock on the northern half, and there's hardly any on the southern half that I could see. So you can see here, and then the northern half has a ton. So we're going to talk about all this northern stuff for sure. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about trees. Now there's a lot of underwater water willows, bushes and stuff like that, whatever you want to call them. But there's a ton of them on this lake, especially on the northern side. I don't know about the southern side because I can't see them, but on the northern side there definitely is. But I tried to point out like the key ones, right? The ones that I thought these are probably going to be holding the most fish. They're probably all going to hold fish at some point in time, but these are the ones that I felt the most confident in. All right, so let's go ahead and select all of Jacksboro. I'm going to go up here to the view. I'm going to take off the sidebar. We're going to draw this back to 2017. We're going to lose some of our offshore stuff, but don't worry. We'll get it back when we go and we look at the Navionics mobile app. It's just the way Google Earth displays it. And again, let's start here on the southern side, and let's just go over this really, really quick because there's not much here, right? So you've got your riprap and stuff right here by the dam. You've got somewhat of a little point here that you could fish around. You know, this is probably going to be beat the bank and just work on the vegetation. You got another point that's right in here, so maybe fishing pretty hard right around in this area, around this point. The Mexican Mafia flies in their drugs right here. So you can sit here at the point and get what you need. Okay, you got a pretty good point there too. That was just a joke. They really don't. They may, I don't know. You've also got a nice little creek that comes back here too, right? So you got a really nice creek. I wonder if I have that on because I feel like those should have came up there. I need to mark that one for you guys. But you've got a little creek back there. I may not have marked it because you can't get, oh yeah, you can't get in there. So you can't get through that causeway. So that's why I didn't mark it. But you do have a nice little ditch that's right back in there. See it? Got a little bit of rock. You're going to have a little bit of flow coming in here sometimes, or I guess going the other way. But anyways, a little bit of current maybe happening in here. Those are always just good areas to look, especially when you can find those little ditches and things like that. Those are great places to look. Now, I did think that this was pretty cool right here. This is an old pond dam. And you can see here, there's kind of the opening there. It's kind of obvious there, but it's not as obvious when we pull the water back up. So of course the water here is only like a foot down, so I'm not able to see too much. There could be all kinds of juicy stuff on this bank line. I just have no idea. Then we move up here. We've got a ramp up here as well. We've got another little entryway to this pond back here. You can see it right here. So kind of fishing that little pinch point. Out here, you've got a nice little point that's out here. Now when I draw that, actually, I can't. I was going to say when I draw it, let's do 2024 because maybe 24 is going to give us a better image. You can see off the edge of that point, we've got some rock. So we'll definitely want to look at that and look at this right in here. Now we're starting to see a little bit more exposed rock on this lake. This must be like a brand new image, but it's kind of crappy. But you can at least see that when the water goes down, we do have some rocky bank lines around here. Maybe fishing this point too could be productive. I'm not too sure. So let's move on up. Let's see. We got some offshore stuff here. I'm gonna have to pull that back down. That offshore stuff we're not going to be able to see until we get into Navionics. So let's go back here where we can get an image where we can see what's going on. Got a pretty good point here. Looks like you got some pretty good rock that's out here as well. So looking at that, here are those slabs I was telling you about. And remember when I pushed it up to 2024, they were actually exposed a little bit more. So strangely enough, the lake up here isn't, but this part down here is a little bit more exposed. When I pull it up to 2024 here, you can see what I was talking about from those slabs. Pretty good little point here as well with some rock. And that's about it, right? Not too much on the southern end, but let's go up here to the northern end and let's work our way up the east side and back down the west side and see what we find up here. So this side is where it gets interesting. Now I'm going to go up here just so you can see it. 2024, right? Water's down. It appears to be down about, I don't know, 5 or 6 feet here if you just look at the boat ramp, something like that. Let's go ahead and draw this thing down to 2017. And you're going to see that all of a sudden the water just freaking disappears. Maybe it's not 2017. It is. January 2017. Here we go. Boom. Lake is way down and we've exposed a ton of stuff. So cool up here. You know, down here couldn't see as much. So let's start right here at the dam. I marked these trees, and the reason why I marked these trees all along this bank line is they're right along a rocky shoreline. So I liked them. The depth was a lot better here as well. So just really like that. And I like these rocks going all the way along this whole side. That looks like it could be a productive area with some pretty good depth. You've also got a pretty good little point out here. Nice little hard spot on the edge of the point. You got a little road bed you can kind of see here. It's an old road bed, but you can see it go through here. You got a really interesting transition area right in here. Notice how it goes from sandy, 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 and then boom, all of a sudden you got heavy rocks. So maybe focusing it in and around that transition area, those trees around that transition, stuff like that, that can be productive. When you come over here, you've got just a couple little points. So if you're out here fishing these trees and you're like, man, I got so many of them that you can fish, what areas should I focus on? Maybe just focus on the areas around the points, right? Anywhere you can find a subtle point or anything like that, fish around those areas first, and those are going to be your higher percentage areas. As we move back here, you can see you've got a little bit of a creek channel or something going in here. I can find it all the way up to here, and then I kind of lose it going through those trees. But you can see right here, you got a decent little creek channel coming, a nice point that's right on that creek channel swing. And then you can scoot over here into these trees, and you've got two little ditches. You got one right here and one right here that you could take a look at. Now again, you just gotta be careful because there's trees everywhere on this lake. We've got a point here as well. Again, just fish the points. Those are always good. We got another ditch that's right in here too, so you can take a look at that one. Then we move up here. We got a little bit of a rocky bank line. Maybe fish around that point. I kind of like these little spots right here, right? It's kind of sandy-ish, and then you got these little rock piles that kind of stick out. So I marked all of those as well. Let's back up, show you guys where I'm at over here by the dam now. When I get down here by the dam, there is a decent little like creek or ditch or something going on right here. And you guys know they like to set around that kind of stuff. So that'd be a spot to take a look at. You've also got an interesting little rock pile right here at the edge of the dam. So if you looked right on the back side of this thing, notice how it's just kind of dirt, and then it goes to rock, and then it goes back to dirt again. So right here in that spot right there. So as we looked at all that, let's go back and let's draw that back up to 2024. You can kind of see what it looks like now. That ditch is a lot more prevalent now for sure. And there's actually, this is exposing a little bit more rock here now than it did before. Really good looking flat, guys, back in here for sure. Okay, so let's take that back to 2017 where we get it way down there. And now let's go ahead and move on up and see what else we can find. So we got some pretty good, obviously, riprap along the whole dam. We've got an offshore spot here that we'll talk about later on, but it's basically what it is you can see it here. The reason why I marked it offshore here is because I can see it from Google Earth. See how it gets a lot lighter right here? So this is some kind of a hump or a point that comes out with a hard spot on it, something going on there. We've also got some rock in here, a couple rock points too. Just really mark that, where they come out, they separate themselves from the land, then they get hard again, just on those little rocky points right here, and then you got a huge little hard spot back in here again, a good little spawning cove back in there. Now down this whole bank line, it's basically all rock. So I didn't want to just mark rock, 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 rock. So I tried to just mark the ones anything about this bank line that really stuck out to me, right? Because it always seems like that the bass will always go to, they're kind of like us, right? They want the nicest house in the neighborhood. And so if this is the whole entire neighborhood and everybody's pretty much got the same rocky houses and everything, this is like the crown jewels, right? It's close to the point. It's got the bigger chunk rock to hide behind. So I try to mark that kind of stuff. So we've got rock there. You could actually focus a little more on here. It looks like they get a little bigger in there too. And then obviously coming out here, these are interesting points because if the water is up, so let's move the water up, you're not really going to realize, you're going to notice it on this one because you're going to see that hard spot, especially in 2024. But I don't know if you're going to notice as much coming into here that these are two really hard area points. Like this one for sure, but this one right here, you might not even know. You're looking at the bank and it looks sandy, but that's a very good hard point right there. It's got some timber on it as well. It's just a really good looking point that you could go take a look at. We're getting ready to get into the juice on this one where it gets real interesting. We move back in here again. So some bigger rock, right? It's just a little bit different than all the other rock here. So I just kind of marked that. It's also got a bunch of those trees there as well that you can take a look at. And then we get into this area and it looks like a hot mess. Yes, for sure. But I was like, man, there's so much stuff here to mark. I would probably spend some time up here, especially depending on this depth. The depth really got me here because the lake fluctuating so much. So I'm like, I can't tell if this is exposed or not. At first I thought this would all be exposed. And then when I took the water up, I was like, wait a second, it's not exposed at all. So you wouldn't know it's there. So all kinds of crazy stuff. So let's go back to 2017. Let's just kind of show you how I have this marked. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with this track that's right here. So all I'm doing on this track is just trying to let you know that, hey, this is a really long like point that comes out that has rock all along it. And there's really some pretty decent ledges along that rock. If I come in here, maybe not on the south side of it, but on the north side, look at the breaks that's there. I mean, you got shadows from where the sun's hitting it, which means you've got depth there from the top of that rock down into the water. It's not really close to the top of it. So you've got some pretty good ledges that are back there. You've got a really good hard spot right in here. Notice how it's dirt, a little bit of rock every once in a while, but this is a real good hard spot. You got another real good hard spot back here. When we get back in the back of this thing, there was a pond back here, but I didn't even mark it for you guys because there's not like a pond dam or anything like that, but you may want to check it out. As you come in here, you just get this rock, right? And you're just gonna have to do some scanning around and see what you can find, but all this stuff looks like it could be juicy. It's a little bit isolated, right? Because sand, dirt, boom, here now you get some rock, now you get a hard point, now you get some sand and dirt again, now you get a little ledge that's down here. You can see it. It's got a nice little shadow as well. Some really heavy rock and debris going on in here. Some interesting stuff to fish around. Some more rock in there. If you get out in here, you can see there's little humps out here. So I marked those. Out off this fishing pier, you've got several different areas of rock. You kind of got a stretch here, and then if you get off to the side over here, you got a really big pile that's right in there. Now, this is another couple spots here where I marked those trees where you're gonna be like, dude, you missed so many trees. But I was only marking certain trees that I thought would hold fish. I like this one right here because you got a little pinch point. You almost got like a little nice little point that comes out here. So you could check that out. There's actually a tire right there. I just saw that. And then look at the ledge that's on the side of this dock right here. That's pretty significant too. Over here, these are those another section of trees that I thought, man, that just looks like a productive set of trees. It's right on the inside of that point, which is just makes them in a good spot. Let's move on out up here. We talked about the fishing pier. We've got some more rock that comes all the way out here, right? So get a little bit further out. We've got a little bit of an area right in here, another little point right in here. Back here, I almost marked this as ledges because you can tell it's a little bit of a drop going on right in here. Even back in here, it's almost like a straight line and then a drop. Same thing on this side too. So getting back in here and kind of just figuring out where those little drops, where those breaks are, and seeing what you can find on there. Now this huge thing is a massive flat. I have no idea the depth. We'll look at it on Navionics here in a minute, but when I pull the water up, it's completely covered. So I want to go ahead and mark that stuff for you guys because you never know what the water depth's going to be when you're out there. So let's pull this back and kind of show you what's up here. We got some debris that's up here. We've got a really good hard spot that's out here off this point with some really good chunky stuff out on the sides. I like this spot from an offshore spot because it's a real good pinch point with some good trees. I could see them hanging in these trees all in here, getting real close to that pinch point. You got rock here. You've also got some really good trees here off this hard spot. And then it goes back to the trees. Get back in here, you got some more rock back in here. You've actually got a road bed that goes through here. I'm guessing that's not too deep, but I went ahead and marked it for you anyways. And then you come off the ramp and you've got a couple more areas of rock here as well. Some real good points here. Another good one there. Really good. I just marked this. I could have marked rock or offshore. I picked offshore for this because when I pull the water up, I mean, that's pretty far off there, right? You're coming off the land and you're out here. So take a look at those and notice this little ledge that's back here. You can almost see it with the water being so clear right here. We'll pull this back. Look at the giant. I mean, this must be like super flat, and then boom, you just have this really big break right in here. So pretty cool area to go look at. Then you got a road bed over here, and that pretty much wraps us up for Lake Jacksboro. Let's switch over and look at this thing from the Navionics side. I think you're going to be surprised. When I was looking at this, I was thinking this is the deep lake and this is the shallow lake. You're going to be surprised when I switch this thing over. All right, here we are at the very end of the video, and we are going to finish it off by looking at the contour lines for Lake Jacksboro. Let's do the same thing what we did on the beginning, where we started on the south part of the lake, and then we'll end on the north part, because the south part, there's really not too much. Even from a contour perspective, when you look at it here, there's just not a lot going on. Maybe right in here, you know, there's just nothing special. You've got a couple points that you can look at, but we already marked those on Google Earth, so I didn't mark those. These two spots right in here, though, they do interest me a little bit. Only because you notice you've got a little bit of a flat going on right in here. Such weird contours. Got a little bit of a flat going on here, and then you have, boom, you have a major drop down to 27-something foot. So maybe like right in here in that area. And then over here, you kind of have the same thing where you've got a major drop, almost like a little ledge or something like that going on in that area. Then as you go down here, you just got this flat that's over here, which we were talking about a minute ago. It's about 4 foot. So pretty shallow up in here. So you could fish around the edges of that, you know, out in here. But I really like this spot because that's where it's really deep and really shallow, kind of all in the same spot. And then we'll move down here. Again, a couple more points, and then just not a lot, you know, not a lot going on from a contour perspective. This area in here is another one of those areas where I wanted to kind of point it out to you, where it looks like it's getting really sharp, maybe a little ledge or something like that going on there. The contours are kind of tough on this one. We get back in here, we have that huge flat that comes out, so maybe fishing off the outside edges of that possibly, but I really liked this right in here. This is where it gets a whole lot deeper, coming right off of that flat. So shallow, 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 boom, you hit this really deep spot right in here. And that's about all I really saw on the south side of it. But let's go up here to the north side, and this gets a lot more interesting. We'll start down here at the where the roadway is right here. Almost said dam. This is where all those trees were. Really like this point that comes off here. Notice how it tapers off into some shallower water here, but you've got some really good break going on right in here. Kind of the same thing that we've talked about 1,000 times, you know, finding that where it gets really deep and then goes to shallow. That little transition right there typically is a good place to go find fish. So let's move on up here, see what else we find from an offshore spot. A lot of this looks the same, you know, pretty just steep off the bank, and then it gets pretty deep. But out here you have a little point, and I believe there were some trees in this area and things like that, but we do have it marked offshore, so you'll see it out there when you're out there and you have it on the card. Then we're going to move on down. Didn't see too much that really jumped out at me. Of course, there could be some stuff underwater we just can't see. Maybe right in here, like in this area, but I didn't mark it. You know, it looks like it's at least gets a little bit shallower, but we're still talking 24, 25 feet of a flat right there where it goes, and then it kind of has that ledge in there. So maybe right in there, not too sure. I did like some of this stuff down in here though. You finally get some contours, some things going on. You got a little point that's down here you could check out. You got a couple humps that are down here by the dam. If I zoom in, you'll see them. This one goes up to 13 and down to 29. And then 14 and 24, you know, fishing this little pinch area in here too, that can be good as well, right in this area. And then obviously those two humps that I just marked as well. Then we go up here. I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's a little island or what the heck, some square thing that's here. Maybe this is some kind of man-made structure or something like that. But right behind it, you notice it's a little point. So maybe fish in and around, or not in it, but around it, if you can, if it's not buoyed off in that area. That could be a good little spot. You've also got another one over here. I didn't see this one last time. I don't know how I missed it, but right here, you could have a possible little point there as well. Then let's move over. If we look really closely, we've got like a big, huge ridge that's out here. Kind of starts over here. It's almost like a huge hump. So you got 14 foot over here. That's the shallowest part of the hump. Still pretty shallow here. Kind of goes down, gets deeper, comes back up to 13 foot over on this side. So maybe taking a look at some of these areas in here and over in here as well from an offshore standpoint. If I pull it back, you can see it looks a lot more obvious than what it did when we had it zoomed in. And then of course, again, another area I would have marked, but I know we've got it marked on Google Earth, is this little point right here. You've got really steep, remember this was the chunky rock. You got that really chunky rock, and then here it kind of tapers off and gets shallow. So that right in there, and then you remember that this one had that little hook that came out or something like that with the rock. So there was some interesting stuff going on right in here when we were looking at it from Google Earth. Then let's go over here. We're almost done. We're gonna come over here. This is where that, basically that big rock ridge was, right? Remember that we circled with the red line. Of course, these contours don't do it justice because it looked completely different. But here is gonna be the edge of that ridge. It comes to a really high point. That's that hard spot we talked about. And that's that other hard spot, I believe. But from a contour perspective, you can definitely see it's a hump. This one's got a major drop on the south side of it. Then we're gonna move up, you know, just a couple things maybe to look at would be right in here off of this point where you've got that big drop right in there. And then of course we had all that good stuff that we marked from a Google Earth standpoint that should help you a ton. And that actually brings us down to the end, back to the park where we started, or to the road, Park Road or whatever it's called. So that ends it for Lake Jacksboro. So if you have not gone out to simplisticfishing.com, please do so. We've got, not only do we have Lake Jacksboro, but we've got tons of other lakes that are out there all across the United States. Go check it out, simplisticfishing.com. We'll take the waypoints that we do on the videos. We put all those onto a SD card and we mail it to you. You put it in your graph and boom, you've got all the waypoints there. We also send you the digital files so that you can do your planning before your tournaments, things like that. So definitely take advantage of it. Simplisticfishing.com. Until next time, guys, I hope you catch your PB. Take it easy.